You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we're going to jump into the shopper as a whole, shopper journey, how it's changing, these LLMs, the AI, the agentic things that are going out there, whether it's Rufus, all the way to shopper loyalty. And who better to discuss this with than Chris Perry, a longtime friend of myself, but also the network and tons of brands in it, doing some really cool stuff out there, the CPG space as a whole. But Chris, I would love you to tell people about yourself, what you guys do at First Mover and all that other fun stuff. Because it's awesome. And I love it. And I hear great things. And anytime there's people out there helping others, helping brands get more educated in this ever changing, rapidly changing, crazy space of e-commerce, it's awesome. And so anyways, jump on in.
I'm honored to be back on the show. I'm always excited to find, you're a busy man, so I'm trying to carve out some time even just to catch up and nerd out on all these things. But very excited to be back and talk about anything we want to talk about. But we've been doing a lot at First Mover. And for anybody who isn't aware of First Mover, we're becoming a household name, because I wanted to first congratulate you on 8 years
at
BWG
8 years.
Connect, because we've hit our 5th year. So we're a baby compared to you, but like but you know, we've been in this in e-commerce years. This is centuries, right? So I mean, this is,
and you've been educating people in this space for a long time. Your time at Essential and Edge and all that fun stuff. Like, because we first met almost right around 8 years ago at that Scott Wingo's Amazon
Amazon track within our event. Yeah,
IRCE back in the day when it was huge, right? Yeah.
No, and to your point, I've always had a passion for education in any role, and that's why First Mover is a nice name for our community and platform, because we're all first movers, whether you knew about us or not. You are a first mover. You are an educator, whether you like being a teacher or not. But my mom was a teacher. My wife is a teacher. I almost became a teacher. Then I went into marketing and e-com and then became a teacher anyway. But yeah, First Mover, for anybody who's new to the First Mover community, we like to say we're upskilling for a change. We're kind of an upskilling platform and community that really focuses on helping CPG leaders and practitioners, as well as agency, solution provider, retailers, upskill themselves with both the knowledge, but also the real hands-on actionable application of the strategies, the what is it, the why is it, the so what, the now what. We put on tons of public events, webinars historically when we couldn't travel. Now we do a lot more in person. We've trained over 35,000 professionals through certification programs and workshops within CPG, not even from our public events, but just that's many, many more people. And then we also do a lot of consulting but capability work, like not just like advisory, but we like hands-on inside the organization. So we always like to say we can teach you to fish, or we can fish for you. And if we don't, then we can find other people within the network, because again, we're independent and unbiased. So we work with everybody, and it's really just try to help, just like you, help connect the right people to the right solutions, right? Or the right step in their maturity curve.
The digital matchmakers.
Exactly.
That's who we are. You're
much better at it than we are, but we love like connecting the thought leader with the person who's ready to be thought fed, if you will. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So when we were chatting a little bit, this idea of the shopper journey and how it is changing, and it's changing from the discoverability standpoint and how people are finding. It's changing on the conversion standpoint of what's actually converting, but then on the loyalty side as well. Like, how do you get loyalty? How do you build loyalty with the consumer when consumers are becoming less and less loyal? So anyways, let's where do you think we should kick this off? I mean,
well, I think what's funny is we can have like loyalty can be kind of an overarching theme, because I think what's funny is, and we've done a lot of research on this. We've been doing a lot of trainings on this. This actually became a focal point as we started focusing on what we call omni category management. And when people hear category management, some people turn off, like, oh, that's not for me. No, it's for everybody, right? There are Catman professionals who've historically focused on the brick and mortar experience, right? Space planners, the category leaders on the retail side, on the brand side. Sometimes they are usually separate from the sales team, just because sometimes they get access to data and insights as category captains, but that the rest of the team isn't really allowed to access. And they're really supposed to be those unbiased advisors for retailers to help guide the cookie category or the paper towel category, whoever it may be. But the reason that opened up an interesting angle on loyalty is because growth is a function of acquisition, right? New people or lapsed people, the people you already have, just continuing. And then, but buy rate, right? Getting people to come back more often, to buy more occasions, to trade up, to stock up, to trade across. There's so many ways to drive loyalty. And so there are a lot of brands who I would say check the box and say like, oh yeah. Well, I mean, I have a whole portfolio. I tell people about that. They know my portfolio. They know my flavors. They know my other variants, right? I would say P&G has always done a nice job of cross-selling their portfolio so that you have Tide and Downy and Bounce, like all together. I mean, this isn't new to anyone, but I think it's almost because it's not new, it got put on the back burner. And so loyalty, and we as we've presented this, we had a couple executives say, "Oh, shopper loyalty doesn't really exist. Shoppers aren't loyal." And I said, I would agree that they're not easily loyal. In today's instant gratification environment, we jump between things all the time. Like, if you're not serving me now, if you're not scratching my back now, I move on to somebody who does. But I think second to the nature of human beings not being loyal, we haven't really had brands and retailers truly designing for loyalty, because I think most loyalty programs, when I say loyalty, people think points-based rewards programs or hey, if I'm in the grocery retailer, loyalty program, I've got their loyalty card, I get a discount when I sign in, and I don't even know what I have it on sometimes, but suddenly my bill goes down, right?
Right.
Like, and that, yes, that's a part of loyalty, but there's actually a lot of ways to very intentionally design around loyalty. And it's not just loyalty programs. I could call programs anything: a campaign, a tactic, a lever, an actual membership program. But there's so many things that brands and retailers and them jointly can do to hold on to that shopper consumer. I just don't see a lot of brands do it. And actually, I'll end on this is really interesting. And this was from Ibotta, as a leader in the space, but they had some cool stats on this. 66% of retailers and brands prioritize acquisition over loyalty as their main strategy for growth. But yet, and interestingly enough, I think it's 69% of brands and retailers who use loyalty programs of any type, actually their number one goal for those programs is acquisition, which makes no sense. So I'm using a loyalty program to acquire new, not to get. And to be fair, I bought things before because I saw I could sign up for a program. So it's an extra benefit. But I'm using loyalty programs to get new people, not to keep my current people. So by nature, then clearly we're not designing them for success. So that's an overarching theme that we can talk about. But I think, especially with AI and all these things changing the journey.
I want to dive into that, because from that customer acquisition standpoint, the rise of the LLMs fundamentally changes if you're not optimizing for that. Right, you're going to use Rufus instead. And we did a podcast a few episodes back with Max over at Azoma, who's building out these basically SEO for these SEO platform for these LLMs. And some of the stats he had around just the adoption rate of Rufus, which originally was horrible because it stunk.
Right.
Amazon
it's like the QR code, right? Everything that comes in first is clunky, and then it dies a little bit, and then it comes back because it gets more frictionless, right? So
yeah, and that's, if you're looking at that standpoint, then conversational AI search is going to fundamentally change new customer acquisition.
100%.
And if you're showing up there, you don't have a chance at customer loyalty if you don't even get in front of them when they're looking. You don't even have a chance.
Right. So to your point, in this time of transition, right, of great transition, right, we need to make sure where we have the human connection in the current path to purchase, that we acquire but keep them, so they aren't necessarily defecting for our category or for our brands to Rufus or Sparky or ChatGPT or whatever tool they use, right? But then to your point, in parallel, we need to be optimizing. And arguably, if we actually optimize for the shopper-centric digital shelf now with the right answer, like we're optimizing not for just keywords, but for answers, right? That we're really speaking to the shopper. We're going to actually show up in many ways within a Rufus set of recommendations. So they go hand in hand. But so in the short term, you got to win with the human shopper. But in parallel, by winning with the human shopper, you're going to win with the agent. But you also have to design for the agent too. And there's some we've done a number of really cool workshops where we just got to bump around with it. And while again, Amazon in particular is not obviously going to share their Rufus algorithm, black box, formula. A lot of people, I think, don't realize, like, when you walk the shelf, I like to call it Sesame Street science. It's like, which one is not like the other, right? And I keep saying that because it's not rocket science. It's like, hey, when I typed this question and I got these answers, but when I typed this other thing, I didn't see that. And so what can I discern was the reason? Because you probably can get about 80% of the answer by just comparing the differences between these, like spot the difference. But then the other thing is ask the AI tool why they didn't recommend the other thing, because that's the geeky question no one would ask. Like, hey, I'm picking on brands, right? I asked for the top whitening toothpaste and I got these 4 brands. Let's just pretend Crest didn't show up like as a leading brand, right? Why didn't you recommend Crest 3D White? Like, it will tell you why it didn't put it in there, right? Like, so it almost gives you a little bit of the black box preview of what its methodology is, even though it's not going to give you the full formula. It's giving you some insight into that. So some of this is just realizing that there is going to be some like playbook of steps and kind of a science to, just like you could lay out the steps of walking a digital shelf and auditing it manually. There is kind of we have some little cheat sheets of things that we give out, like, just like, how do I start prompting it to understand why things came up differently than I would have expected, or how they would have come up in traditional search. So I think people get a little overwhelmed by what they don't know, but it's like bump around. That's how we did the first 15 years of regular digital shelf. Do it again, right? It's okay that you don't have all the answers.
But it's also interesting that, like, Amazon being the black box it's always been, right? Is you would type in a search and you don't show up, and you're guessing why you don't show up. In this conversational aspect, I think sometimes people forget it's truly a conversation. So to your point, like, now it is, why didn't I show up? And it can look and respond and let you know.
So Aaron, one interesting example, and like this one sticks out in my head, and I've shared this a few times because I'm picking on the brand, but it's a positive for the brand. Kenvue's Neutrogena is an amazing brand in all the categories they are. But what was interesting is, so I was just looking I was doing this for a workshop in specific categories, but I was looking up, like, on Amazon, I looked up best sunscreens for sensitive skin, just as it's a top search term. Obviously it's a little more niche than just best sunscreens or sunscreens, but it was a little more niche, but it was looking for so I said sunscreens for sensitive skin. And obviously got lots of different choices, lots of brands I've heard of, lots of new brands I haven't heard of. But then when I asked ChatGPT that same question, asking what are the best sunscreens for sensitive skin on Amazon.com, so I wasn't getting every other D2C website and retailer under the sun, the first recommendation was the Neutrogena Hydro Boost Gel product, blah, 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 out of 10 that it gave me. But when I looked at that the search results for that same query on Amazon, that SKU was, and any SKU related to it was on page 3 of the search results. So to your point, non-existent to the shopper on Amazon for at least that keyword phrase, but was the number 1 recommendation on ChatGPT. So then I said, hey, ChatGPT, why didn't you recommend, why do you think, essentially I'm talking to it like it's a person, why do you think it's not showing up high for this keyword phrase on Amazon.com when it's your number 1 recommendation? And it made obviously a very astute comment. It said, well, sometimes the best products for your need or want or mission aren't the ones that rank the best just based on how other brands designed or paid to show up, which makes total sense. So sometimes the diamond in the rough is hidden from you because it just hadn't had a chance. Maybe it's new, maybe it hadn't invested as much, but point being is, it was starting to highlight why it wasn't. And then it said, do you want a full recommendation on how you could optimize it for better Amazon search? So it started to get at, not to say there aren't better tools that are like designed to help you SEO for AI or AIO or GEO or whatever they call it. But it was more that like even ChatGPT was like, well, if you just put these phrases and these keywords across it rewrote the description, it rewrote the bullets, it rewrote the title. It even said if more reviewers happen to mention this, that would like, it actually gave, again, a pretty 80+% directionally correct audit of what you could do. Obviously, you need to discern further and add your manual touch or art direction to it. But it was amazing how, again, you couldn't have asked in search, well, why didn't that happen, right? But in ChatGPT or Rufus, you can, and they jump in to try to help answer the question. So I have like a lot of passion for this because, again, when we mention this to people, some traditional practitioners struggle even with just like, how do I really walk the digital shelf?
That's exactly what I was going to say, because you started with the original Catman, right?
Yeah.
And you used to go out and walk the store, right?
And you know what to do. Like
But how do you do that
the first
now?
time? I mean, you did later.
And I know, remember when Detail Page, Spencer Millerberg first came out. I mean, unbelievable, right? Like I could start seeing performance, category share, like all these cool things, and there was a tool for it. I mean, part of the Edge team now. There's obviously the stack lines, the Smart Scouts. Is that the tools that people are using? But then we have this new, Rufus, a Sparky. How do we walk the store shelf now? Like, what does best in class look like?
Yeah. So I would say, again, Spencer's Detail Page, there's a number of different tools from a textual SEO based content perspective that are emerging and advancing quickly, that are designed to help brands optimize for what is going to keep being a moving target. But obviously, if their whole proposition is about doing this, they're going to be incented, obviously, to all advance at that same pace. And so I think there's going to be a lot more thought leadership and revealing of what, again, isn't ever going to be completely unveiled, but like we'll peel back that onion of even better understanding like the A9, A10 algorithm, the traditional algorithm on an Amazon or whatnot. And there'll be some best practices. But but in general, obviously understanding what top keywords and phrases are relevant for your category are a good place to start, because that's going to help. There is still going to be some level, like I'm not going to look for sunscreen for sensitive skin on search, but then ask a completely different type of question using completely different words in a query. I'm just going to ask the query differently, right? I'm going to ask, what are the best? I'm not always typing in best in search, but I might type that into my traditionally a Google query, but now more of a Rufus query. So sometimes it's just starting to ask. It's also looking at like Rufus suggests questions that you can ask, which is a helpful place. Because, for instance, this is a weird one on toothpaste. One of the suggested questions is, does this contain any artificial sweeteners? Now, I've never thought about that in my toothpaste. Honestly, I have thought about that on my diet sodas. So I'm not so scrutinous that I can't have any, but I have been aware of that. That was actually, interestingly enough, 21 years ago when I met my wife. Before she was my wife, the very first thing she saw when we met, I was holding a diet soda, and she said, that's going to kill you one day. And I was like, you're the one, like just, I knew it right there. Like within about 3 hours, I knew she was the one. But my point is, but she was trying to the aspartame. Like you don't want to, like she was very health conscious. She didn't want me. And so from that point on, I was a little bit more aware. So again, I'm not saying that should stop you from, again, I'm not eating toothpaste, but it is in the product sometimes. So that would be something I wouldn't have thought to have to answer in my content, text or imagery. And remember, Rufus is sophisticated enough to pull even as of today, any of the written or visual content communicated in your carousel images. I'm sure at some point the enhanced page down below the fold will be included too. So it's not just, did I put it in a bullet? Was it in my long form description? It's also, is it literally written the exact way that people are like, or the most common way people are asking about it? But again, this is part of like, ask questions that you would ask as a normal consumer about that category. see what it suggests, because as a normal consumer, you'd be prompted by the same thing that the AI. You're like, oh, the artificial sweetener thing, I never thought to ask. Let me see what it says. Like, and see what happens. And when it says, well, the brand doesn't explicitly provide any information on that, it'll tell you that. And boom, check, potential piece of content to add, right? In the long tail of your content, right? Oh, I have that content, but it clearly is not answering that very specific question, right? It's half answering it, which is why it's not being pulled up. So this is the part, it's a little bit of an art and a little bit of a science, but it's going to start as art because you have to formalize and I would say.
And Rufus is relatively new, or Sparky, or whichever one we want to talk about. ChatGPT, they're still relatively new.
Exactly.
And it's also, what's interesting is, what the way people will do a query is different, right? So sure. I will ask ChatGPT in different ways, right? So we had grilled out chicken. The dog got in and ate like 3 like drumsticks, right? And you then ask, what do you do?
Right.
And you can say, hey, what do you do? It's my dog. And then you can flip it. And I put it back in there and I said, oh, act like you're a top veterinarian and somebody called you with this problem. And then it gave a different set of answers and how to diagnose and what to do, which is very interesting from the standpoint of, if you flip it, and I'm on Amazon, and it will go to the toothpaste example, right? Which is, I might not just say what's the best toothpaste? What toothpaste would a top dentist recommend?
For sure.
And we'll get a different answer than best toothpaste, potentially, right? Potentially could. Well, then what that means is it now even widens the overall amount of different queries that could take place. So now you're optimizing for even more than you've ever optimized before, which is, I think, what people are just, they're weary. They're weary right now, right? They're just weary.
No. And that's a good point. I mean, obviously this can feel, it already felt fragmented because, again, in the in-store world, I went to the toothpaste aisle. It was all there outside of a promo in cap somewhere or a secondary placement. One aisle, I knew where it was in the store. There it is. All of them are on it, sorted and planogrammed accordingly. Rather easy in the whole scheme of things, right? Online, we have hundreds, tens, hundreds, thousands of shelves based on various niche keywords or top-level keywords or branded keywords or competitive keywords I put in. When you get to the query level, you not only have all those different keywords, but then all the random, to your point, variations of, do I have an educated prompt engineer, even as a consumer, who knows how to ask the right kind of question? Like, if you were a veterinarian, what would you recommend me? Like, not every consumer is going to do that, but some would, especially if they get educated on you get better outputs with the better inputs, right? But I think at some point there's going to be some common ones, just like, again, even if I had, I'm making this up for a category, if I had 1,000 keywords versus one aisle in the store, so I went from 1 to 1,000 keywords that matter, and let's just pretend I went to 100,000 potential queries that would matter. There's clearly going to be a long tail in there, and then there's going to be some, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be 80-20 rule, but there are going to be some bigger hitter common queries, right? That I can't speak for everything unless I'm going for a niche audience, or I see an opportunity to be incremental with that niche audience, but I can go after the core ways people ask for content, and I can make sure I've created some content for that. The other interesting thing that you kind of bring up, Aaron, is when you think of like the carousel of images, most shoppers expect to see about 6+ images in a carousel, or they're willing to swipe that many times in a video. But even if you had long tail content that wasn't really intended to be seen overtly, so you had your core story in the 6 that people might see, and then you had that long tail that was only pulled up by ChatGPT or by Rufus or whatever when called upon, right? When that mid-level query was in the long tail was called out, that might be okay, because it's kind of an I'm glad you asked slide, right? I didn't need it. It's in the appendix. I don't need it up front, but I actually had that question. Is this taste like lavender? Because I really, or does it smell like lavender? Is this an aggressive red hot, cinnamon mint, or is this like a mild, like whatever it may be on the category? That's not for everybody, but that is for like a persona in your group, and you can add that content as well to be shopper centric, but also AI agent centric.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting too, just on that note, is people do give more details in the conversational search bar, right? And I'll use that for all the LLMs, right? People give more details, right? They don't just say best toothpaste. A lot of times, especially in ChatGPT,
or for this person, right? Exactly.
Yeah. In the more in all of these, especially like a Rufus, they know it knows everything you've bought in the past, right?
Yes.
So it knows buying habits, buying patterns. It knows basically your household income. Are you a national brand shopper? Are you a private label shopper? It literally knows everything. And it's going to start then being able to tailor the results to you. And the more information you give it, the better the result is going to be, right? It's AI. They're all prediction engines, right? And the more information you can give it, the more accurate the prediction is going to be.
And actually, Adobe did some cool survey data. I mean, I know there's a lot of cool research out there. We're just always trying to grab some that, like, again, don't tell the story that we want to tell, but tell the story that is being told, right? But Adobe did a survey of like 5,000 shoppers at the end of last year, and so obviously a lot has changed in 7 months, since it was done. But at that point, they'd said 39% of shoppers had used agentic AI in their shopping journey, and that like 53% were planning to this year. Like I imagine that number, obviously, of who has tried it. So it's not the share of sales yet that are AI driven; it's the share of behavior, right? Just like with omni grocery shopping, right? Most shoppers have actually bought grocery items online, even if they don't do it all the time, right? So it's not that 100% is ever going to be one or the other. It's somewhere a pendulum in the middle. But interestingly enough, 92% of those who had already used it found it to improve their shopping experience. And while many had said that they found it most useful for complex or high involvement purchases and categories, it starts just like, hey, there's like a double-edged sword here. I almost say, like, I don't want human beings to lose or never actually get to practice, if they're young people coming up, critical thinking skills, because they've even, what MIT showed, that like people that use ChatGPT for something use such a small part of their brain versus someone who has to use all of their brain for critical thinking. So that is a general humanity concern out there. But the thing is, why, even for a low involvement thing, like for that reason, I'd want ChatGPT to do something, just save me the time. Hey, you know what? I need a new laundry detergent that's on deal, but also has the fresh scent. Like I'm brand agnostic at this point. Or, hey, I do want Tide, but I don't know which variation is the best offer at this time. Can you tell me? Right. So even if it was high or low, I think people are going to use it all the time. And this is before, obviously, even AI gets just merged into search, right? Right now it's siloed, right? We got two channels. I can do it the old way, or I can do it the new way. But what happens when they're just one and the same, right? Where my search experience is as simple as sunscreen, and then AI Rufus just answers, and maybe tries to prompt me, like, do you want something more specific? Or it just lets me query right in the search bar. So I think at some point, as with everything is an add-on until it gets merged together. And then because at some point my behavior, I'm going to imagine people who go on search who are like, why won't this thing work? Because it won't act like an AI agent. It'll feel so old school, right? When it's not merged. So I think we're going to see, undoubtedly, as the behavior increases, retail, like I imagine Amazon and Walmart would be first, just because they've been leading this already with their own rollouts. But I imagine it'll just merge into the search experience. And so, again, there's a lot of opportunity, right? This is why we're like, as first mover, all puns intended, be the first mover. You don't have to be right. If you're ahead by a year or two, if your competitors figuring out what works and what doesn't, and then you're already 3 steps ahead, and then they won't know what you did, because they'll have to do the same auditing the shelf and the AI agent experience. So
you have to be testing and learning. You can't ignore it.
But my call to everyone out there is, and I'm sure there are a few listeners out there or watchers or readers that are like, oh no, I already do this, Chris. Well, good. My point is, you need to start being the first mover, telling people how to, like, teaching them how to do this, like getting them comfortable, right? Because again, if you're not the shopper, if you're not the sample of one and you haven't been doing it yourself, you're not the best advisor of your future shopper, when it sounds like most shoppers are doing this and are liking it and are doing it more as it becomes more pervasive. But then it's also like it's being okay with it not being a formalized standard operating procedure. It isn't yet. Like, because to your point, Aaron, there's like 50 different queries that even I could ask different from you. So what I think is standard might not be your standard, but there are some common things, like almost like, again, like a customer decision tree. Like, what can I ask that kind of helps me get more and more insights? And then if I'm a real nerd like I am, I can keep intellectually curiosity driving more questions until I'm satisfied with kind of my directional answer on what would help me as a brand or as a leader fix this problem or take this to the next level.
Yeah, it's interesting from the standpoint of this idea that like AI is not the future. It's now the present.
100%.
It's now the present. And so you look back, oh, AI is the future. Like, but we're there. And we got there faster than anybody thought that we were going to get. At least I didn't think it was going to move this fast. And the rate of adoption is crazy. How fast it's learning and it's training itself to get faster and faster.
And you mentioned, Aaron, like in Adobe's survey, they had kind of said that like AI-driven shopping-based traffic was up 4-digit percent from in 2025 versus last year. Which is not surprising because, again, it's becoming more pervasive. But again, it was off a small base, so that's why 4-digit percentage point jumps are expected. But then more importantly, like time on site, number of pages per visit, like engagement was up, and then conversion at the time they pulled it, I'm sure it's actually crossed this now, was AI assisted conversion, shopping conversion was at almost at parity with non-AI assisted conversion. But to your point, as it learns and knows, Aaron always likes the fresh scent on any product that has a scent. So I'm going to auto recommend that based on what he's already bought, what he's expressed, what he's clicked on. And so your conversion is going to be higher, not only because it curated the shelf to a few options based on your query, but also in your iterations, but also because it's already going to know you. So just like they used to say Facebook and Instagram knew you better than your spouse or partner, AI will know you arguably just as well, if not better, and then won't just be a passive I know you and put ads up for your content. It'll just do things for you, right? Hey, Chris, I took that task off your list because I already know you need to do that. And and that was an easy thing. And here's the response or the result or the output that you needed. So I will, to your point also, this is an important, I like to use just story analogies, whether it's movie references or whatever. But while this isn't meant to be biblical, I would just say there is a flood. We need to get on an ark. And if you don't believe there's a flood, look down at your feet. They're wet. Like, so, and if you can't feel that, that's a medical issue, but your feet are wet. Like, so the good thing is the flood isn't a typhoon, so like type tsunami thing where it's going to knock you over literally the second, but your feet are wet. You will need to start swimming soon if you're not already. But more importantly, if you don't like to swim or don't want to tread water for the rest of your life, you need to build an ark, get on an ark, learn how to fly.
You can't build an ark. Just get a little raft.
Well, no, exactly.
Thing. Build
this
a barrel.
is your moment to get out of the water unless you like to swim.
Yes, do something.
Yeah, because this is that, like, there's that, like, I'm sure it's a famous cartoon, but I just with Noah's Ark, but it was like the dinosaurs were on this island and they're talking to one another like, that was today, and they missed it, right? But like we've been saying this for ecom. We've been in the space for a long time. I mean, I've been in ecom 15 years, which feels so old, and yet we had that much time technically to get e-commercialized, and there's still some laggard organizations that are still kind of just getting started, and I wish they'd gotten started earlier, but they didn't. But AI is not giving us 15 years.
No way.
Not at all. Like it's not going to give us 5 years fully. I mean, it's not about I'm going to become a cyborg by 2030. But with chips in my brain and everything, but AI is going to impact all of our jobs, what skills we need or need to be leveraging more often, what headcount remains, how org structures are designed, and that's like by 2028. Like that's not like that's in the middle of the 5-year plan from this year. So that's my point for like human beings more than even just leaders. Is yes, I need to be thinking about my company, but I may not be in that company in the future, in the role at all, in a role at all, or in the way I am operating today. So what it's not selfish. What is my personal plan? What are my options, right? I could be reskilled for whatever's left. There may be some new roles. I may be displaced outright, and I may have to be a fractional person on the outside. I may need to change careers where human skills still remain. Like, I don't need to go down too much of a rabbit hole there, but I have just as a human to human, I never like to see my friends. I know you are helping people connect too. Never like to see them get displaced by, org changes, reductions, et cetera. But that was the stuff that's been happening is pre-AI. Like, AI is going to sweep a lot more off the plate. And so that's not to scare anyone. That's just to prep you, right? Be prepared for the flood as the tide keeps coming in, because it will, and you have time to get ready for it and to get on a raft, on a boat, on a plane, whatever, become Superman or Superwoman. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, fly, like do something different.
And if you don't know where to get started, like, literally, if you're listening, give myself or Chris, just ping us on LinkedIn. Shoot us an email. Give us a call.
We don't have all the answers, or we would be millionaires. Obviously, I'd like to think I was, but you'd see me with a different background if I was. But I mean, but we're here to help. Like, honestly, we can't do this alone. We need to do this together. And again, it's not anti-AI. It's pro-human, right? Like, I'm very, like, I loved that, like, the Dove campaign. It was pro-age, not anti-aging, right? Like, I loved that concept. It's pro-human, right? AI is here to help us, but it will disrupt some of what we used to do and how we did it and who did it. And I want to make sure everybody's still in a place where they're working up their Maslow hierarchy of needs personally towards their ultimate actualization. But you need to make sure you don't rest on your laurels and you do something different and reskill here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Chris, always fun, always enjoyable. And thanks so much for your time today. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks, everybody, for listening in.